Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
Welcome. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Huge news everywhere. You've probably seen the spin. ESPN elevates Sunday night to women's sports, WNBA, NWSL in the summer to replace Sunday night baseball. This is a very, very clever marketing move from ESPN because they're failing. We've talked about this many times just as a brand. ESPN has been steadily failing for a long time. They're going to slowly lose cable money as everyone gets rid of cable and all of that. And we've seen that they focused on a lot more of other things than sports coverage. And this is part of that. But they knew, I will give them a lot of credit for this. They knew that when they made this announcement, all the rest of the media out there will spin this as some epic victory for women's sports, that ESPN, the former worldwide leader in sports, has chosen women's sports, has chosen the WNBA and NWSL over the American freaking pastime, Major League Baseball. But of course, that is not what happened, and we will get into that. And we're going to talk about whether this is a win for the WNBA, a problem for the WNBA, being compounding a problem we already know about, or is it really just a win for ESPN? Let's dig in. So as you can see, ESPN to fill Sunday Night Baseball void with women's sports Sundays. ESPN announced on Thursday that it will fill its former Sunday Night Baseball slot with a weekly women's sports showcase. Now, a lot of what's being put out there from, Yahoo, just women's sports, ESPN, maybe like everyone is, they're spinning it that ESPN said, no, you know what? We're dropping Sunday night baseball. We are choosing to put women's sports in that slot instead, but that is not the case. That is not what happened. The real truth is ESPN could no longer afford Sunday night baseball, and therefore they no longer have it. And I believe it is at NBC now. Sunday night baseball is a goner after 36 seasons. They agreed, Major League Baseball and ESPN agreed to part ways, agreed to have opt out of a 7-year, $550 million rights deal 3 seasons early last February. They came together with a rework deal for this package season. And I believe, now see, it says 550 million rights deal 3 seasons. I believe it's 550 annually, if I'm not mistaken. It's 550 million per year. All right, I just double checked and it is 550 million per year. So keep that in mind. ESPN paid 550 million per year. Okay, while the WNBA is getting what, 2.2 billion over 11 years. Maybe I think there was something worked out where they could get a little extra from something like Amazon or whatever, but we're just going to park it at 200 million, let's say 200 million a year for everything, though, not from ESPN, for everything. So obviously, Major League Baseball is paying way, 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 way more because this is not something added on, right? ESPN is what they did is they got rid of, they couldn't renew Sunday Night Baseball because it was too expensive for them, and then they moved WNBA games that are already were Sunday afternoon. They just elevated them to the evening. So this is not more money. Now you could say it's more exposure. Sure, the people are more likely to watch Sunday night than Sunday afternoon. That is fine. Absolutely can make that argument. So that could be a benefit for the WNBA. But ESPN isn't paying more. And they're not going to need to get the ratings that they got with Major League Baseball because they're paying a lot less for it. Now, it says Variety reported the news Thursday. It's interesting ESPN went to Variety. But anyway, they're planning 9 weeks of women's sports Sundays that will include both games and studio programming. We saw an opportunity to have access to what I would call women's sports season the summer months. Sunday night is the biggest night of the week when it comes to TV viewership. NBC Sports Sunday Night Football, for example, has reigned as the number one show in prime time for a record 15 years. ESPN's commitment to air women's sports in the prominent primetime window is another indicator female sports leagues have arrived as premier sports TV properties. And again, that's not really the case. We'll see what happens going forward in further years. ESPN lost Major League Baseball. They didn't say, hey, look at what everyone's watching women's sports, so we're going to get rid of Sunday Night Baseball that we've had for 36 years. No, they could not afford Sunday Night Baseball. Now, it is true they've made a commitment to women's sports. I'm not knocking any of that, okay? This has nothing to do with trashing women's sports. Again, I want them to succeed, but I'm trying to put the ESPN thing in context because we're going to make another point with Caitlin Clark specifically and the growth of the WNBA. Rosalind Duran, ESPN's EVP of Program and Acquisitions, described the women's sports strategy as a flag in the ground and a continuing commitment. It will consist of 12 games over a 9-week period, although an official start date is yet to be announced. Yeah, obviously, WNBA, we're not sure with what's going on with the whole union deal and everything, but because I want people to keep in mind, in 2024, Major League Baseball averaged 1.5 million viewers on Sunday Night Baseball, or ESPN, I guess, averaged Sunday Night Baseball, which was up, I forget, it was up a lot from 2019. They went back to 2019 because of the whole, stuff that was going on. And then 2025 was up to 1.8 million. That was the ratings average for Sunday Night Baseball. 1.8 million. 2024 was 1.5 million. So, right, like baseball, it was growing, at least, Sunday Night Baseball was growing a lot on ESPN. That was a ratings bonanza for them. But again, failing network or cable network, whatever, but failing, and they couldn't afford it, so they're going with women's basketball, and I believe NWSL games are going to have in there as well. Now, keep that number in mind because again, we've got this. Now, this isn't all just the ESPN numbers, but Caitlin Clark, WNBA ratings records on ESPN, Fever Sky did 2.3 million. On CBS, Sky Fever 2.25 million. ABC Storm Fever 2.2 million. ESPN2 Fever Sun 2.1 million. On Ion Fever Sky 1.6 million. NBA TV Aces Fever 678,000. What do you notice about those numbers? Yes, the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark are in every single one. So then I'm going to wonder, is ESPN going to demand a certain number of Indiana Fever games? Is that what is going to happen? Because they're like, hey, we need a certain base, we're going to need certain ratings. Okay, so we're going to need at least X number of these games to be the Indiana Fever, which will cause the problem we're seeing right here. This supposed women's sports reporter, Sarah Jane, I think I talked about her. It's been a while, but she has me blocked for whatever reason. It says that because someone posted about this and she says the WNBA will have 15 teams, adding Portland and Toronto. This is not designed to focus on one team, women's sports as a whole. Well, the ratings again show otherwise. And this is another example exposing the issue with the CBA, folks. The league has shown right now how dependent it is on Caitlin Clark, and it needs to prove that it can do differently, that it can do differently without Caitlin Clark, that it can hit a baseline ratings number to justify what the players want out of a CBA. So that's going to be interesting as well. We'll see how this goes. Look, for me, hey, I hope the season starts on time. I hope the Indiana Fever play on every one of those Sunday nights and ESPN from the Fever get the ratings from those games and Caitlin Clark stays healthy and the Indiana Fever level up the entire WNBA and we get a lot of change. A lot of these old, salty, unlikable players, they're on their way out. New blood coming in, players that understand marketing, that understand fandom and how important it is. And we see a whole new era from the WNBA. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Appreciate you checking out the video. As always, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Go of the day you deserve. Shout out to the 19. I'll talk to y'all later.